Hello, everyone. Welcome to Forum Friday. Today I have Mark Florka with me. Hi, Mark.
Hi,
And we
everybody.
are going to go through some of the problems we see on the forums.
hmm
And it's been so lively that some of the questions really intrigued me. So let's touch on the first one, Mark. How have you been this year? Sorry,
I've
I
been
forgot to ask.
great. I mean, it's been an unusual winter for us here. As most of you may know, I'm in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, where we usually have quite a snowy winter, and we haven't had much snow at all
I
this
know.
winter.
The snow just stopped in the US and stopped going there. That's
Yep,
why we're
and
all like getting all these huge blizzards and then you get nothing.
yeah, we're actually getting 90-mile-an-hour winds today with pouring rain. So it's
Oh, yeah, I don't want those either. We just been getting a lot of snow here in Portland.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
otherwise everything's been great. Forum has been busy, as you've said. There's been tons of stuff going on there. Right.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that there was a really interesting discussion on bread and dough and mixing in the
hmm
mixer. So could you go a little bit more into that?
Yeah, that's kind of neat. We've had a number of members jump in with advice and a great productive conversation. And basically, start off with the question of asking about, what speed should a sweet dough be mixed at in a 140 quart Hobart mixer with a spiral dough hook, right? And so there's only so much information that the original poster could provide because of confidentiality. His employer wouldn't allow him to post the formula per se, but he could give us some information. And in essence, a sweet dough is soft enough, it's high enough hydration, and then with all the sugar in that, you need a little more speed. So it's best to start off on slow for a while to get everything nicely hydrated. And once it starts to pull away from the bowl, switch to a high speed. Now, then there's different schools of thought, and that depends on your production schedule. I personally prefer to go to third speed because these Hobarts they have like a stir speed, and then they have four different mixing speeds. And I would usually go to three simply because once you go to four, you develop a lot of friction. So you have to make sure you start off pretty cold with everything so the dough doesn't get too hot. Now, the poster's concern has been more with will he burn out the motor? But that's not likely. These machines
Did
are
you say he was
incredibly
working
powerful.
on a, did you say he was working on a Hobart?
It's a Hobart, yeah. It's a 140 quart Hobart.
It
I've
can take
worked on
anything.
some that have been 50 years old, right? It's like they last
As long as
forever,
it's a
right?
Hobart, that's fine.
Yeah, as long as you grease them once in a while, they're happy, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so the resounding thing was like make sure you check with a thermometer, watch your temperatures. If the dough is starting to get too warm, if you're starting to get up into the 80s, then and you're not developed, then slow down, go back down to third speed. And as one member pointed out, well, sometimes it's a matter of production schedule. He likes to mix in 10 minutes, so he goes to fourth speed because he wants a batch coming out of the mixer every 10 minutes to work it off and keep the line going and pump it all into the freezer. So it all
That's
depends on your
absolutely correct.
circumstances.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
then with Canadian flour, it ends up being different again because the mixing times end up being much shorter because of the strength of the flour. So we usually end up only with about a 6 minute mix time on high speed rather than the 10 minutes, right? Um,
Right.
and if
Isn't that
you,
wild? They did
yep.
not teach you that in pastry school, right? Like it's all real world kind of problems, you know.
Yeah, it's
Mixing
and it's
is not just
it's really
mixing, it's
interesting because
production
yeah,
schedule.
production schedules, there's so many factors to keep in mind, right? And then, are you using liquid eggs that come, ice cold out of the fridge, or are you using egg powder, right? Where you can then use the water to regulate temperature and stuff. So there's a lot of things. Some people suggested adding ice. That is usually a last resort. because as long as the ice is frozen, it cannot get absorbed into the protein for dough development. While it does a great job of chilling, it doesn't do a very good job of mixing. I know it's done a lot in the Caribbean and things, especially, but I usually try to chill all of my other ingredients as much as possible, including the flour, if environment is warm and dough temperature is an issue, right?
Those are really good points.
Yeah.
Really good points.
So it's been a great conversation. It's been really interesting, very productive, and very positive, very uplifting.
So let's go from dough to cake.
Mm-hmm.
We have a really interesting discussion with cake emulsifiers.
Yes, this is this is started off basically in looking at emulsifiers in cake premixes and trying to understand the role that saturated versus unsaturated fats play in emulsifiers and in cake mixes, as far as how does it affect aeration or emulsification and all these types of things. And so there was a number of questions that started with that, and there's some good general opinion discussions going on, like recommendations of other companies that produce different types of emulsifiers and so on. And then we have a member, and I'm going to mention his name. I hope he doesn't mind, because he deserves the kudos here, right? And it's Roy Bassan.
Thank you, Roy.
Thank you, Roy.
You're
And he has stepped up.
Such a
and
thought leader. We appreciate your voice. Thank you, Roy.
He's like given a lecture on emulsifiers here. He's very thoughtful and very positive and going.
We should just invite him on a Baker View where he lectures on emulsifiers. I can tell you everybody's going to attend.
Yeah, he's great. He goes right into the different IV levels. He goes into all kinds of other things, right? And so he's talking about iodine values. He's talking about crystal habit and crystallization and so on. So, like, for sure, he's an oil chemist.
Or a chemical engineer.
And great to have him on our side with the bakers, because oil chemistry is, I sometimes feel like it's black magic a little bit.
Well, that's the thing. Like, nobody talks about it because there's such little specialty in it, and it is not involved in the mainstream, bread baking kind of thing. Bread baking really pushes the baking industry here in the U.S. It's used in a more smaller niche, like Entenmann's cake, right? Like Hostess, those kinds of products. So that's the reason why it's not talked about too much. It's a smaller niche, and the experts are smaller, so yeah. So it's
anyway.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing those points, and definitely if we can get Roy to come on to give a lecture on emulsifiers, I'll be the first one signing up.
That would be cool. I will ping him
on the issue of fats and emulsifiers. Let's go into a total different discussion altogether. Let's talk about lobster tails.
Yes.
What are lobster tails?
Yes. Well, although I am here in Nova Scotia, where we we get lots of fresh lobster almost year round. But they're called lobster tails, is the English translation of the name of the pastry that is called sfogliatelle, and it is
I won't even try to pronounce that.
Yes, it's a beautiful traditional flaky pastry. There's one that is very similar to this that is made in Malta, and they call them pasticci, and it is done a little bit like a puff pastry, but the traditional manner in which it is done is the dough is rolled out very thin, about 1 millimeter in thickness, and then stretched a little bit more by hand. And then you spread either just butter or a mixture of butter with a little bit of ricotta cheese on, and you roll it up. And you roll this up and keep spreading the butter on until you have like a log of this rolled dough, and you chill it, and then you slice it, and you shape it with your hand, with greasy hands, to to take this roll and shape it and make a hollow, and you put a custard in it. Then the custard is made from semolina and water, like cooked almost like a roux, like a choux paste almost. But then you add the ricotta cheese and sugar and lemon and everything to it, and that goes in there, and you close it, and then you bake it. And so all these layers are now going sort of concentrical, right? So
What? That
yeah,
sounds phenomenal and delicious.
it is. It is, and there's actually a picture of it in the post too. You can see.
Oh my
It's
gosh,
really
how
cool,
long does
right?
it take to make one of these? I want to try. I want to get my hands on them. When can I get them?
Probably in most traditional Italian bakeries, right?
Oh, really?
So this fellow has bought a reversible dough sheeter, and he wants to try and use that for making the sfogliatelle. So it's basically been some pointers back and forth, and I found a couple of links that demonstrate how it's made in the traditional manner. One is a Food Network TV chef doing a demo, and one is another bakery chef guy on YouTube doing a demonstration of how he does it, and they're both very similar. And so it's quite an interesting subject, and a lot of the discussion has been around, well, could you make puff pastry and then just roll the puff pastry out and roll it up and slice it? And so it's something you'd have to try it and see if that would work, right? So I might even experiment with that myself, right?
Ooh, I want to see it.
Yeah. Only thing is, ricotta cheese is expensive these days, right? So
Yeah, that's true. Any dairy or egg product's gonna cost you like.
But it's really cool.
So let's talk about expertise. We have a question on what you should be bringing to consult at the bakery.
Yes, well, this is
what would you bring, Mark?
Well, myself, I would bring one tool that usually comes in pairs, and it is best coupled with an accessory that in some cases requires a little bit of training and some patience to learn. So that tool is the pair is your ears, and to listen with, and the accessory is to listen with patience, an open mind, and without judgment. So when you go into a bakery, you need to first hear them out. What are they actually experiencing? What is the main issue, and what has changed, or what is different, or things like that. So there's a lot of things to consider, and you know yourself, you've gone into many places where they have problem A and think it comes from B, but as you look around and listen to everything that's happening, you discover the issue is C, right? And so then you can work together to resolve it, right?
It doesn't matter what you bring. If you bring the wrong tools, you're not listening.
I mean, you can bring all the sophisticated tools you want to try and impress them. That isn't going to necessarily help. Now, might you need an oven profiler? Maybe, but if thorough bake is not the problem, then what do you need a profiler for, right? And so the first thing is to listen to what the challenges are, what they need to have. We don't want to go into taking measurements or things like that simply for the purpose of doing measurements, right? It doesn't help anyone. And it's like
always good to go in and take a look first before you decide what you want to invest in, right? I mean, even if you're starting out as a consultant, in fact, I wouldn't recommend investing anything until you find what you're good at, what your niche is, and then slowly go from there. And what's wrong with asking the client to invest in them first?
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong in asking the client to buy a thermal profiler if you think they need a thermal profiler?
Have we got time for a short story I can share?
Sure, of course.
So when I started off on, after I worked in mostly like bakeries and restaurants and hotels for a long time, and then I started off in technical support for a large flour miller for ADM, right? And when customers would complain about the flour is no good, some guys and some companies, all they would do is they would go into the customer, get a sample of the flour, take it back to the lab, let the lab analyze it, and tell them nothing wrong with the flour, and then that would be it, right? We tended to operate differently, especially with some of the sales guys that I had and that I worked under and stuff. So I got the call. There's a bakery 2 hours from here. It's a one-man show. He bakes all the bread himself, and then he goes and delivers, and his wife looks after the store when he's out delivering. And he's saying he's got a huge problem with the flour. His bread isn't jumping the way it's supposed to and stuff, and he says it's not working. And coincidentally, what had happened at this around the same time is the printing on the bag had changed, so that the logo that we used to have on the bag was now a little bit smaller, and bakers become very skeptical when they see change, right? So he kind of figured, and of course flour is the biggest ingredient besides water. So he's not happy with his bread. It's got to be the flour's fault. So I phoned him. I found out what time does he start. I made sure I got my butt in there at 4 o'clock in the morning to work with him and see what he was doing. Well, it didn't take too long. But again, like I said, I went in with an open mind and just put my apron on and worked with him. And so I saw him measuring for the dough. And so he's putting in the salt. And how does he measure the salt? He's got an old paper coffee cup that he uses to measure the salt. And as that cup of salt is how much he puts in. And I'm like, I take the cup of salt and I put it on the scale, and I know how much flour he's putting in. And I'm like, you're way short on salt, bud. That's why you're not getting enough strength in the dough. It strengthens the protein. I said, okay, I tell you what, I'm going to go, I'll buy us a cup of coffee. Okay. Coffee's on me. And I'll get, so I went out to the nearest coffee shop and bought us some coffees and came back with a clean cup for him. We used the new cup, worked like a charm.
Oh my God.
Problem solved.
Okay.
And no word of a lie. I didn't make this story up. And I had a great time. I helped him produce all his bread for the day. I stayed and helped him with the whole production for the day. And he was very happy because now his bread was ripping open, beautiful and strong again. And so he even gave me like 4 loaves of bread to take home with me and stuff, just to say thank you and that. And so,
wow. That's a great story.
I made another friend, right? So I like to share those. So that's why I say it's really important just to go in open-minded and listen and learn, watch what's going on, right? They've been doing it usually in their bakery for a long time. They're not new at it. They may not be scientific experts, but they know what they're doing, and you got to trust your senses to listen to what they're telling you, right?
Yeah, that's funny how people hire our services to go consult on their site, and we are actually the ones coming out learning so much more. I hate to say this, but in the fact of me learning, I actually provide the solutions.
Yep. It's a win-win, right?
So that's all I think I would like to highlight from the forum. And is there anything else you'd like to point out?
Well, I believe you have some big news to share.
Yeah. Okay, so we just launched our Baker Concierge membership, and it's been a really busy first month of the year with us putting all the little pieces in place, because we are planning, to cultivate a caring, peer-to-peer mentorship, a group of bakers that, that don't need excessive consulting services. They need a support, they need a group, and then they need to know where to go to look for things, right? And we're here to facilitate it for them. So currently our membership is free. The next tier up, we target medium-sized bakery, and then the next tier up we target large bakery plants. So we've got various levels of membership. And if any of you are interested in learning more about this membership program, please reach out and send Lily a email. And her email is Lily Lee at bakerpedia.com. Okay? Lillylee at bakerpedia.com. And she will set up a demo with you and show you what the different levels of membership would bring you. So I love that we are evolving this way, Mark, because this means that we could support more individuals with more, concierge service, hands-on service. And hopefully you will be part of our journey as well as we hold the closed session roundtables.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think that one of the big benefits it will also bring for those who sign up and participate is that the group dynamic of it all helps to not only answer your questions, it helps you discover which questions to ask. And that sometimes is an even bigger challenge for some people, is they know they have issues, but they don't even really know where to start, what questions to ask. And this sort of thing can really help, because you'll find yourself talking with people, as you said, peers, who are in the same boat or very similar circumstances. And then, light bulbs will start to go off and, yeah, I have the same problem, or I've seen that issue, or, I see that opportunity for us as well, and so on, right? So it's really, it'll be amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. It's really going to help bakers tremendously.
All right. Well, that's great. And I would like to see more people participate in the concierge service. So when is your next podcast, by the way?
I'm trying to get some guests arranged this week. So I have been mentoring as we speak. Since we're speaking of mentoring, I have been mentoring a group of university students together with their professor at Montana State University. And they have a very interesting project that is now starting to move forward more and more. And that is that they are helping women peanut farmers in Senegal build a bakery and make a breakfast nutrition bar for children and people using their very own peanuts that they harvest. So it gives them more empowerment to their livelihood and controlling, their own harvest and things like that. And the Montana State is also using this to produce a bar, or trying to develop a bar for U.S. production that will feature Montana State type of grains, right? Along with the bao from Senegal and peanuts, right? So it's quite interesting. So I'm trying to get Dr. Koo, who is the professor at Montana State University, and the coordinator in Senegal is Aliou. So of course we have a little bit of a time difference to coordinate, and so I'm hoping to have that wrapped up by next week, that we can get our audio editor to finish it up and drop it.
So awesome! I always look forward to your Bacon Science.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoy meeting the people and the conversations.
Gosh, your last few ones were just phenomenal. Great job.
Thank
Great
you.
job. Yeah.
Joanna keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, that's all for Forum Fridays today, folks. So we'll see you and we will continue the discussions on our forums on Facebook and LinkedIn.
And happy Lunar New Year of the Rabbit. Kung hei fat choi.
Bye bye.